want to take a look at adding some different modules inside of Metasploit. So you can see here I'm actually inside of the Metasploit directory. I'm on a Linux system. I'm in opt Metasploit apps pro MSF3 modules auxiliary scanner, and I'm actually in a subdirectory under there called discovery. And that's because I actually want to write a scanner that's going to go look for a particular service. So let's take a look at what's in this directory. Now I'm in Linux, but the same principles apply under Windows. You would find where Metasploit was installed. It would typically be in the root of the C drive into a directory there. And from there you could go find the modules directory and find a particular module that you actually want to use as a starting point. So all you really have to do is take a look at what's there and see if there's something similar. There's no point in reinventing the wheel, and these make pretty good templates to start out with. So let's say we wanted to use UDP sweep as a starting point. So that's going to do a lot of probing on UDP, and what I really want to do is do some playing around on the UDP service that we had previously looked at in some other lessons or videos. So I could use any number of those as a starting point. So that's actually what I did, and I wrote one called bad UDP for my bad UDP server. So right here I've just got the framework for a class, and I am putting that under the auxiliary set of modules inside Metasploit, and I'm including the auxiliary scanner and the auxiliary report modules to use. I'm doing an initialize here where I've given it a name, and I've just called it bad UDP scanner. I haven't actually given it a description, and then we can move forward here. And here's where we would register options. You remember under Metasploit, we've actually got some options where we do show options, and then we can set some things. If you've got specific options, in this case, I'm setting a remote port option. So if you had a different remote port you wanted to set here, you could set that. In this case, I'm using 9876. And now we are creating a socket, and that's a UDP socket, and we're using these as parameters to that. We're going to add the socket, and then we're actually just going to send that particular packet. Now here I check the response, and I make sure the response is something that I expect to get. And if I find it, then I'm going to report that I found the bad UDP service. So let's take a look at MSF console at this point, and I'm going to get that started up. You can see I'm adding some report nodes here as well. I am setting the host to be the IP and the protocol to be UDP. The service name is bad UDP. I'm setting the port and then the type and the data for the report node. And that goes into the Metasploit database and will remain there until we actually delete it or delete the host. So right here I've got MSF console up, and let's take a look at what we've got here. So I'm going to search for bad UDP, and I've got the scanner there. Now I can just use auxiliary scanner discovery bad UDP. And now if I do the show options, I'll see the remote port as one of the options, and of course remote hosts is always one of the options. I'm going to leave the port alone and set our hosts to be 172.30.42.0/24. Now all I have to do is run, and it's going to scan through all of the hosts on my network, and it's going to indicate to me when it has found a service that responds in the way that's been outlined here in this module that I've created. And again, as I said, no point in recreating the wheel. There's plenty of modules that you can use as a starting point, and you'll get the structure of how Metasploit likes the module to look and how it wants it to be written. So you can do all of that from one of the existing ones and then just make the alterations that you need to make. So in this case, I took a pretty simple UDP module and made a number of changes so that I am connecting to the right port and I am actually sending the right message to the service and then checking the response to see whether I get the correct response or not. So right here you can see we found the bad UDP service on 172.30.42.55, which is actually the host that's actually running that UDP service. So we can see that the module actually worked, and it worked as expected. So adding modules into Metasploit is pretty easy if you know a little bit of Ruby and can find your way around Metasploit and use maybe different modules for ideas on how the different features and functionality of Metasploit can be used inside of these Ruby modules that you can write and add into Metasploit.